Welcome to Brightly, You Radiant Being, the show that wildly recognizes, encourages, and invests in the radiance we all carry so you can shine your brightest. Each episode, we share soul driven advice and topics to help you live more brightly in mind, body, and spirit. Through sharing our experiences, friendship, and passions, we hope to impact you to step more brightly into yourself, inch by inch.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, Tracy. How are you doing?
I'm really good. I'm really excited to talk to you today because I want to know, since we last spoke, is there anything you have manifested into your life?
Oh, wow.
Right? Ooh, I didn't bring that up in the pre-show chat.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the funny thing is that I actually, the day that we recorded the manifesting, I manifested 2 books that I needed like immediately that day. So I don't know if that
Such
counts or not.
power.
But yeah, I feel like I have many manifestations constantly.
I
What
love
about you?
that. Well, I want to go back to that. Mini manifestations, right? It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be, I want to win the lottery, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of steps involved with that. And it may or may not happen someday. But what are those little tiny things that you manifested throughout the day? So
Yeah.
let's see. After we recorded, I actually had a really hard weekend. Um,
Oh.
and I feel like it was kind of the closing out of a cycle. And of course, I didn't notice that in the moment,
Mm.
but it is definitely what I was trying to manifest, right? Like manifestations aren't always like, hey, here's this shiny thing. Sometimes for the shiny things to come in, I realized you have to go through those transitions. And sometimes those are kind of dark. There's a release,
Yeah.
revisiting of issues. And so Friday, Saturday, I was being really hard on myself because I didn't know that's what was going on, right? So I just felt like I was backstepping. And then on Monday, something happened, and I was like, oh, you manifested this. Good job, girl. And so,
Wow.
yeah, it was one of those things where, I was open to everything that was happening. I didn't fight it. And it wasn't in my plan for the weekend to feel like that for part of it, but by just kind of like vibing and going with the flow, like it got better. But it was definitely, a mini manifestation, right? Like it wasn't like a huge thing, but it was like, oh,
Yeah.
these steps have just occurred. um
So that's interesting because as we talked about earlier before recording, I've had such a weird week with like physical things happening to me that now sometimes I look at it and I realize not everything is the universe talking to you, but or is it? So I am like, are you going through something? This is what I'm asking myself. Like, are you upgrading? The other day I was
yeah.
joking. Yeah, I was joking with some folks who work at a library. And I was joking about all the things that I felt were happening to me physically because it's just so odd for me to not feel good. But I was joking. And as I was joking, I was like, maybe I'm just like a caterpillar who's going through
Turning
this
into goo.
transformation. And it really sucks right now.
It really sucks. You gotta wonder, if is that the thought of the caterpillar in the chrysalis? Man, this
Right?
really sucks right now.
Man, this sucks.
What kind
I
of
hope
awareness
that
does that
I
caterpillar
know.
have? Little Chris with awareness. Yeah, because my question to you when you were sharing some of it with me was, is the universe telling you to slow down? But I like your viewpoint of, is the universe pushing me forward too? Um,
Yeah.
so, and maybe
Yeah.
your body's
I
just
don't know.
really, really feeling those changes early. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. And so it's also interesting just the fact that we've been talking about all these kind of like upper like next levels, right? Like we talked about open to being more receiving and personal power and then manifesting. And so right now today we're going to talk about abundance, right? Like how cool is that? And here I am feeling like
You're
my
abundant in bodily woes.
yeah, which I don't want that kind, right? Because when you think of the word abundance, like you never think of an abundance of bad luck.
Yeah,
You
or
think
yeah, you
of,
don't want to think of it that way.
no, you think of it like abundance can only be tied to really good words, right? Anyways, no
It's
matter how I'm feeling, we're going to talk about it, right?
well, but so abundance, I think it goes back to your mind frame. So although you've had a terrible week, you're not catastrophizing what you're going through
No,
physically, right? You're questioning it and you're hoping the universe has a greater plan, but you're still in a more positive mindset, right? And so I think when we talk about abundance, people tend to think about money, right? Like
right.
gold, right?
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
doesn't want to be abundant in money? But
Yeah.
I think it's about how
It's
you think about things.
it is. And honestly, in the notes, I literally wrote, it ain't about the money.
It ain't about the
And
money. It's not about those
ka-ching
Benjamins.
ching, cha-ching, whatever that song is. I love that song. Anyways, it's not. It is not about the money when you think of abundance.
So what is it
And
about?
so it's a mindset. It is an actual mindset. And I'm giving credit to Stephen Covey, but I don't know if this is a real thing, that he coined the term scarcity mentality and abundance mindset. So we've talked about this before, like coming from a place of lack, coming from a place of need, and that you, it's really hard to get cool things in your life if you're coming from a place of lack. Like the universe, if you are in this scarcity mindset mentality, it's basically you're telling the universe, I want something, I need something. And the universe says, okay, here's some more want and need. Like the universe has
Oh,
no sort of nuance about it. It's just like,
very
oh,
literal.
it's very literal.
I
So
was
you
just
want, I'm going to give you more want.
I like your imagery more than mine because my example was think of somebody, let's say somebody has a romantic interest in you, or even just like a platonic friend interest in you,
Yeah.
and you're just meeting for the first time. And they are just a little too much, little too excited, little too into you, not a whole lot of boundaries, not a whole lot of emotional and social intelligence. Do you want to hang out with that person more? Do you want to give them more of you? No, you kind of makes you want to run away, right? Like that person's a little too clingy, a little too needy. And so I was just picturing the universe being like, ugh, as if, like
But no, you bring up a
pushing you
great
away.
point. You bring up a fabulous point because there is that as well. Sort of that I need you here. You need to be here. Please be with me. Don't ever leave me. And then it's like, yeah, whatever. You want to be with, the universe or whatever wants to be with the fun group, right?
Well, and I think of it too as though, we all have, or I believe we have, we're in charge of our own will, right? I forget the
Hmm.
phrase of it, or we have free will. That's the most basic phrase. I can't believe I just forgot the word free. So we have free will. But we kind of, if you believe in these greater ideas of the universe and manifesting that we've been talking about, we're kind of here for a purpose, right? And that purpose can be really broad and we can pick that purpose. But if your need and your want and you're focused on what you lack doesn't really match up with your highest and greatest good and the highest and greatest good of all concern, why would the universe give that to you? Right? Like what if your asks for a specific type of abundance are so nuanced and specific that it doesn't leave room for what's really the best thing for you? The
Hmm.
universe isn't going to give you that, or it's going to give you it, but it's not going to feel right. It's not going to fill you up.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the other thing with scarcity mentality, just to touch on this too, is that I think for so many people, they think, well, if so and so gets that, it's like it's almost been taken away from me. Or if I
Mm.
get this cool thing, it means that someone else won't get this cool thing.
I have that. How many people have that with money, right?
Yeah.
With
Yes. A
that,
lot of people
why,
have it with money
like,
and with
why am
jobs.
I deserving of millions and millions of dollars when so many people have lack, when you're not considering what you could do with millions and millions of dollars to help the people without, right?
Right.
I talked about the manifesting episode that I came into some money and I fully feel like when stuff like that happens to me, part of it is because I do give to others, right? Like the universe used me as a vessel because it knew I would do the thing to call the
Yeah.
money. Like there were steps involved. If you want to win the lottery, you got to buy a ticket, right? Like that whole thing. Like if you want to, if
Step one.
right, like you can't get what's that? Oh, Vance Joy. You can't get struck by lightning if you're not dancing out in the rain, right? So like the universe chose me as the person who was doing the thing that would make it possible in this dimension to receive it. And then I shared it, right? Like I took care of myself. I'd already identified what I needed, and so it made it really easy to give to others.
Yeah.
And so I make it a point when I am asking for things like, hey, can I win that Powerball? I list out not only what I'm going to use it for, but how I'm going to help others with it, right? And that's
Well,
not
and
finances.
I mean, honestly, it's spelled out in the book, uh, Think and Grow Rich. I think it's
Oh,
spelled out
really?
in that book where it's like, yes, you write your story. Like you write this is what I see. This is when I want it by. This is what I will give back in order to get it. Like you're going to either like donate or you're going to create this product and give it to people or you're going to do this. So yeah, it's spelled out. I
Yeah.
think it's Think and Grow Rich
But you
where
you also
yeah,
said people do it with jobs and careers. So I talk to my boss about the lottery all the time because it is a goal of mine. I believe I'm here to win the lottery at least 3 times, and
I love that goal of yours.
right. But I'm gonna play responsibly. But he's the exact opposite. He will never buy a ticket. So whoever's in charge of his universe and his manifest destiny has to know he needs a different route, right? But so when
Yeah.
we talk about it, I was like, yeah, well, just so you know, when I win, I'm gonna put in my notice. Like I'll make sure and I'll do as much as I can for you or do certain hours for you so that you're not alone. But who am I to keep such a great job? Our employer has great benefits. It's an amazing place to work. And if all of my needs are accounted for, who am I to keep this job? And he just said, he's there for more than just, it's not just about the paycheck for him or like filling like he's the right person in the role at that time.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's great, but I also want to travel. So I am still going to leave, but I appreciate that you found your purpose and will stay here.
And you know what's so funny about that is that Rick and I have actually talked about this, and Rick would be like, no, we'd still keep our jobs. I'm like, oh, hell no. Like, no.
Yeah. And that's one of those, are you work to live or live to work? And I
Yeah.
definitely make sure that the work that I'm doing aligns with my soul. But if I had the time, I'm traveling, I'm studying, I'm reading,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, but also I'm not saying I'm not going to be happy until I win the lottery, right? Like that's just one of my many goals in life.
Right. And that's the whole thing. Like, if you're waiting for this specific thing until you think you can be happy, like we need to
We have a
step
bigger goal.
back. We do. We need to step back and look at that. So that's the main thing, just understanding that there is this scarcity mentality and then there is an abundance mindset. And I think what we want to do, like for the rest of this, is just talk about how to get to this abundance mindset, right? Like how do we get to that? And believe me, I don't think it's like a straight shot. I think it's one of these like loop-de-loo and up and down, and
It's a scribble.
it's a little ladybug walking across a paper. Is yeah, exactly, a scribble.
It's a scribble.
So I mean, I know that the last time we talked about The Secret, but actually the first time I even heard anything about like abundance and the universe and things like that. Now, and this is with my mom being a public speaker, talking about goals and time management, and she had read, the power of positive thinking and Think and Grow Rich and books like that. And so I was open to these other ideas, but to actually hear the words like power of intention and abundance and the universe and source, I was like, what is this? So I, the first time I heard him talk was actually on PBS. And he was giving this long lecture on PBS. It was during one of their, when they're trying to get money. but
Their
it was
version of TED
wonderful.
Talks, right?
Exactly. But it's so then don't you give them money. But so he was talking about his book, The Power of Intention. And as you can see, I ended up getting it because it's amazing.
So I've
And
never read Wayne Dyer, but he's an
yeah,
incredibly quotable person. Like when it comes
yeah.
to positive thinking, intentions, even like mantras and affirmations and stuff like
Hmm.
that, many of the quotes that you see out there on Pinterest or Instagram can probably go back to him.
Yeah.
I see it a lot.
He
I've been to
yeah.
yoga studios and they'll have in gyms, even actually, it's really big in gyms. What CrossFit, stuff like that, where it's really about your mental state,
Yes.
determines what your physical state can do. There's going
Yeah.
to be a Wayne Dyer quote somewhere in that, in that building.
Yeah, he is pretty amazing. I hope nothing ever comes out like, oh, he, did this to small
No.
animals or something, but I don't think so. I just think he's pretty amazing. And of course, he's been dead now 3 years,
Oh,
five
wow.
years,
Okay, sure.
something like that.
I think I remember.
But, he's got a lot of books out there. I have three of them here.
Find them at your local library, friends. They're very, they're abundant out there. You don't have to acquire
That's
all this
right.
stuff new.
That's right. So, anyways, that's the first that I heard of, like the power of attention, intention, and an abundant universe. And what the thing that I love, like one of the things that I love a lot of things about this book and Wayne Dyer, but he actually talks about science. And if you read any of these books, it will send you down a wormhole of all these other books and some of them are actually books on quantum physics. Because when you think about an abundant universe and you think about wanting to call things to you, it's actually quantum physics. It is science. And I know that that might be hard.
Quantum physics and quantum mechanics is essentially why are we here? What created us? I heard recently like the universe is both like limitless but also expanding, and what does that mean? So there is a lot of these questions, that are like frou frou, hippy dippy stuff like that are things that quantum physicists are studying, right? But
Yes.
breaking it down to the numbers and the science, where
Right.
most of us and what you and I do is more on a feeling, intuition.
But I think if you get this thing from a quantum physicist, if a quantum physicist says the actual act of observing a particle changes the particle, you're like, what? So me looking at it changes it. It's like I always think of, so our youngest Nathan would be like doing something, okay, like I don't know, on a skateboard or throwing the football a certain way or whatever, and he'd go, mom, look at this, and then I'd look and it wouldn't be anything like the way it had been the 10 times before he had me look. And then he'd get disappointed. And I had already heard that because I had already read this book and then gone down, a quantum physics hole. And like, dude, me watching you changes the outcome. And so he's like, what? I'm like, just don't have me watch things anymore. Just tell me about them. But I think that we can say this like, oh, the act of observing can change something. But when you really think about that, it changes the actual particle, not just the outcome. It changes the particle. So
That brings
when
up,
what?
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when I think of like Wayne Dyer's quote, change the way you look at something and the thing you look at changes, that's not just a nice quote. That's a reality. So,
I was all it brought to mind to me was that there's this quote that I like in terms of like helping me stay motivated with my goals, but it's energy flows where intention goes. And
100%.
so, we're all energy. Everything is energy, whether it be money, love, just physical beings, material possessions, things like that.
Yes.
And so just putting your intention, and in your case with your son, your attention, right, which was coupled with your intention to watch him and be present for him, it changed it, right? Because your
Yeah.
energy was now flowing in that direction.
Right. And this even goes back to like the manifesting episode where it's like, okay, now what's going to happen is you're going to see blue butterflies. And you're like, well, I have never seen a blue butterfly. And then for the next week, you're like, oh, there's a blue butterfly, there's a blue butterfly, there's a blue butterfly. So that also, because your attention was directed towards something, your energy was directed towards something. So not only is it attention, it's also energy. But think about when you put energy into something and how that thing can flourish after you've put energy into it, right? The right kind of energy into it.
Well, but when it comes down to energy like that, and what's flowing back and forth, you can also throw blocks up, right? And that's what that
Yeah.
scarcity mindset does, is it creates a block if you're not letting
Mhm.
it in.
Yeah. So not only can you throw blocks up, your family and friends and loved ones, they love to throw blocks up without even meaning to do it. Like no one is out
Not
there.
even the loved ones. Like, think of that colleague that just can't get behind what you're doing, right? Like the person you
Right.
just don't want to say hello to in the morning because their energy, whether even if you don't hate each other, the
Yeah.
energy is just not meshing, right? Like that.
Yeah, but sometimes it can be even harder when you do love a person. They're like, no one in our family has ever gone to college, so we're just
Oh,
not smart
oh,
enough. And
I'm gonna say this because she definitely doesn't listen to our podcast regularly enough to get mad at me in the moment. So I know this energy is not gonna reach her right now. I have a sister who believes that we're cursed uh, with relationships, and I
wait,
could not disagree.
everyone or just your family?
Um, my generation of sisters, so
Okay.
the three of us.
Okay.
And I feel like, and she's successful in many ways. I think she has an abundant mindset in certain areas, but a scarcity mindset in others. And
Yeah.
so my abundant mindset just like was like, no, this is how I see what we've had. And I feel like you're putting your own blocks up by constantly saying that. And please stop saying that in my home. I had to sage when she left. I was so mad.
Okay. I love it that you had to sage when she left.
Typically sage her
Okay.
when she comes in, but I was baking at the time and I missed it. She even uses the word curse, and she wholly has that belief, and that's all you're gonna see then, right? And
Well,
maybe it's
that is
naive
all.
and too optimistic, but I don't want that block. There are enough blocks to love in general, right?
Right.
And that's not how I choose to see the greater experience of life. So yeah, we've all definitely had our challenges in relationships, but would I say cursed? No.
Well, and I would say, hasn't everyone?
Right. Like relationships
Maybe
are hard.
not, but
Remember the show we were
relationships are
talking about,
hard.
having a body is hard, having a relationship is hard. This human experience in Earth School, it's just hard.
It's hard,
We're all just
right?
figuring it out, right? And so
Yeah.
why muck it up with the scarcity mindset? Why not believe anything is possible and allow that, open that, right?
Yes. But I do still, I want to go back to your sister because that using the term cursed, like that, that word itself has so much energy
It
behind it,
puts a bad
right?
taste in my mouth. I didn't even like I said, I didn't even like that she said it.
Right. So I won't say it again, but this is what we're talking about. Like you could have someone in your family or close to you or semi close to you who has this strong energy of and I think it was Wayne Dyer again who basically calls it disallowing, right?
Mm.
So they are blocking. And sometimes it's really good that you saged, Tracy, because sometimes even if you're like, whoa, does a little bit of that get in there? I don't know. And so I think it's really good to have boundaries up and to do some clearing afterwards. But also, the main thing, like obviously, when someone's talking like that, you can tell that it's a block and that it's disallowing. But so often, those familiar stories that are repeated and repeated, they seem comfortable to us,
Well,
right?
you're gonna call them in, right? Like those are gonna be the
Yeah.
type of relationships that seem comfortable to you.
Hmm.
And then it's just that self-fulfilling prophecy. It's just gonna keep happening
Yeah.
because
Well, and even
you're gonna get
more
about
so than that, I hadn't even thought about that, Tracy. You're absolutely right. So then, if you are going to call in a relationship, it is going to be like not an easy one. But the thing that I was even talking about is just like, yes, accepting these stories. So the first thing is just like recognizing these stories and this resistance, either of your own, what stories are you telling yourself about yourself? And like, oh, I can't do that. I'm not smart enough. I didn't take this course. I don't have this degree or whatever, but also the stories around you. So that's the first step, is always just like that self-reflection again, right? And
Well,
what are the
when it comes
stories?
to love, and when you're like, oh, the only men that hit on me are married or skeezy or this or that or this age, those are the only men you're gonna notice hitting on you, right?
So, right. So, do you hear yourself say these things? Not, I'm not
And
actually asking you,
and I'm gonna
Tracy,
say
but
because I know I'm gonna find out real fast how current she is on this podcast. I'll tell you that. Um, when you do things like that, when you're like only these types of people hit on me, or only this, only that,
yeah,
it's really hard to not see it as truth, right? Because we are like when I say stuff about myself in certain habits or just things, and I was like, no, this is like true for me, like this is my experience. It absolutely has been my experience, but it's so nuanced and so layered as to why, right? Like it's not because it's a hardened fact and it's the way it's always going to be. But if I think of it like that, I'm not going to allow a different experience in, right?
yeah.
And if you
You
do
have to
that long
start
enough,
telling, yeah,
if you
you,
do it long enough, it's gonna feel like home, and you're gonna not want a different experience, right?
right, right. So, you have to stop telling, I mean, you have to hear the stories you're telling yourself. And then, how can you tell yourself or
Yeah,
begin
so
to tell
I'm gonna
yourself
call
a
out this
different
other sister
story?
because I feel like it's she definitely can have a scarcity mindset. So if you're listening, stop it. I'm on Spotify now. You got to listen. But so she will also say things like, "I'm not lucky like you," and I was like, "That's one of the number one things you will never hear me say is that I'm not lucky." You will
Right.
never hear me put that out in the universe because I don't want
Yeah.
the universe to take that and run with it, right? So you have to start saying that you are and looking for the ways in which you are. And it's not always going to be big things. It's going to be like you're talking about earlier, little mini manifestations, little mini things to look for to see where you are abundant, right? So
Where do
for
you see yourself abundant right now?
well, I don't know about right now, but so if you listen to the manifestation episode, I talked about how I got my house and about
Yeah.
how it just felt right.
Yeah.
One of the things my realtor, shared with me, after we toured the house together, because initially she was like, "We're gonna go see the house you think you're buying, but I can't let you put an offer on the first house you ever look at.
The
You're
house you
talking
think you're buying.
like we haven't even visited it yet. I know you really like it, but like even if we go in it and you like it, we got to go look at other houses, right?" So after we saw that first house together, and I was like, "No, this is it, but I'll play your game." She had to kind of circle around and say, you approach this so much differently than even my second and third time home buyers, but especially from my first time home buyers. She said most of them walk in and all they see is everything that has to change, that it's not perfect, that it's not painted the color that they want, that there's a screen that has to be replaced, that it's not super clean, that it's not decorated how they would, right? And I went in and was like, I can work with this. This is exactly what I need. This is where I can start, right? Like I had a really abundant mindset when I walked in. Now it was a little bit easier for me because, like I said, I saw this home and I knew it was mine, right? Like I had an inner knowing. I
Do you,
trusted my
so,
intuition.
so question just right off the bat. Do you typically have that kind of a mindset for other situations? Like, do you see yourself as saying, I can work with this, with what's presented to me for other situations?
A lot of the times, yes, but
Okay.
it is so often in our society construed as naive, young, and optimistic that it can be really
Yeah.
easy for me to sway to that scarcity mindset. It was at the library.
Oh my gosh, you are 100% correct, because scarcity mindset is the mature way to think, isn't
And it's
it?
contagious, right? Like, yeah, oh,
Wow.
scarcity mindset is the idea that this is the here and now. This
Is
is
it
the
because of the depression? Are we still living, because are we still like, huh? Anyway,
yeah,
sorry, I went
I
off
think
on the
it
rails.
goes to what do they call it? The lizard brain or whatever, that we need food, we need water, we need shelter, right? And
Mm-hmm.
when you have a whole bunch of people all together, it's really easy to see, oh, I gotta fight for what I want, right? Like just
Yeah.
watch any disaster movie and see how quickly people turn and lose their humanity, right?
Yeah.
Instead of seeing, I recently heard on a John Green podcast, surprise, surprise, he was talking about how, potable water has saved more lives, drinkable, clean water has saved more lives than all medicine combined. That the
It's
advent
true.
of that, and that we have that the way we do because people got together and made it happen. And that the
Mm.
areas in the world and the communities that don't have that is more of a scarcity mindset, and they haven't been able to it's just really sad that we live in a world where so many of us have it, and we have it because we banded together and made it happen. And then we have other parts of the world that we're not helping in that way, right? And so to me, that's that abundant scarcity mindset. Nobody here would think about what it's like not to have water, yet Flint, Michigan has been without water for like what, a decade now?
Right.
And again, clean drinkable water. And so I think it's just it's really easy to take the things we're abundant in because we had an abundant community-based mindset about it for granted when we weren't a part of the community that made it happen, right?
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
then have such a scarcity mindset around other things.
Yeah.
um so that's my not fully formed thought, that but just
But I love that the realtor, going back to the act to the beginning of the story with the realtor who said, like, you walked in with a completely different mindset, whereas other people were saying, this is what I'll have to change. You were like, I can work with this.
yeah,
And
there
even though you knew that maybe you might have to change some things, you were you were on the positive side of it.
yeah, I walked in seeing the potential of everything that we
Yeah.
looked at, whereas a lot of people, their version of abundant mindset is getting exactly what they wanted, how they laid it out.
Yeah.
um,
Okay. So, can we step back and look at the potential of our lives without looking at the lack of
yeah,
our
what can
lives?
you do with the money you already have in your life? What can you do
Right.
with the health and the love you already have in your life? And if you match that vibration, like how much more can you
Yeah.
call in?
That reminded me of something my mom did. She wrote this just very quick small book about the 5 rules of, oh God, she's gonna kill me.
She did a lot, Amy. You
I
can't
know,
always be
but
ready. You
so
weren't her
one of the
manager or her
books,
agent. You're
yeah.
her daughter.
So one of the books, the 5 rules of life or the game or something, how to play it, I don't know. Anyways, what I loved when she talked about health, and instead of being like, here's how you can get healthier, what she said is protect the health you have now. So, because of course she was older, she was coming from it like, where are you at right now? And how can you keep it here? Like, how can you protect what you have right now?
No,
Not protect, but you know what I
no,
mean.
but like
So,
maintain. Like, how many of us
yes.
grew up hearing wash your makeup off before bed and put lotion on every day and wear sunscreen every day? And then how many of us at 35 are like, oh, I could have done better, right? Like, it's all in hindsight, right? And so it's as you start
Dang it.
to feel things change or notice life,
Yeah.
go in certain directions that you realize I didn't protect it, I didn't maintain it, I didn't treat it as
Well,
safe.
and I think my point was is that you don't have to look at your life, like, you can look at it without that lack and say, okay, this is the health I have now. What can I do with this right now? Right? And this is the money that I have, and this is where I live, and these are my friends. And can you be grateful and see the beauty in what you have now?
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When you're taking stock of what you do have, how do you avoid falling into that trap of I don't want to lose it?
Oh, that never
Getting
enters
too
my mind.
getting too attached to it. Because that's a scarcity
So,
mindset too,
well,
right? Like
it's
this is
very
mine, I'm not letting
much
it go.
okay. So, I guess for me, I never think about, oh, what if I lost that? Except I think the only time I maybe fall into that scarcity mindset, and I think it has to do, it's just like not really scarcity mindset, it's catastrophe mindset. As a parent, you're just like, sometimes you get into that trap where you're thinking about your kids, and so, but I get past that by just every morning visualizing the white light around them. But so that attachment, you're right. If you attach to things, if you're like, I don't want to lose this, let me hang on to it.
Yeah,
And
I have all this money. I'm not going to give it to other people.
right.
I need
Well,
I need
yeah,
more. I'm not safe until I have more.
that is a signal to the universe. Oh, they don't think anything else is coming in. Stop sending things in. Like, is that really what you want? So I think in order, you have to give, right? And whether it's, and I'm not saying like you get a paycheck and then you take that paycheck and you mail it to your neighbor or something. That's not what I'm saying. But so you have
But the
some
economy
money.
depends on flow, right? Like that's
The
a very
economy does depend
simple
on flow,
example that
but
you
it's
can't
not
hold all of your
always
dollars.
right. But it's not always this exact thing for this exact same thing.
Yeah.
It might be, oh, I have, yes, I'm making more money. I also have some free time now. I'm going to volunteer, however many hours a week.
And it doesn't even have to be that kind of altruistic generosity. It can be, I have more money now. I'm going to scale back at my day-to-day job so I can do this thing that is my passion that will help somebody else in the world, right? I'm going to use this money to create a
Yes.
webinar. I'm going to use this money to take a class. And then by virtue of you investing in yourself, you are now investing in others in indirect ways, right? Or putting yourself in new situations. It's
Yes.
about flow and
So important.
not this for that, not I got this, so I
Mhm.
have to give back this.
No. And in fact, I love your example even more. Like, I don't think we ever think about what could I create that could help 20 people, 100 people,
Yeah,
whatever. I don't
I
think that
think
we think like that. So I think that when we're thinking of an abundance mindset, we have to expand like the universe, right? So we have to expand what that actually means as far as giving back.
and what it means for you as an individual, because that scarcity mindset,
Yeah.
that grown up, mindset of a version of abundance is keeping up with the Joneses, right? Like people joke about it, but they all kind of do it in a way. Like I need to have a certain
Yeah.
house, I need to have a certain car, I need to have a certain 401k, right? Like you have all these benchmarks in your life that aren't necessarily what you want to do, but life has taught us, at least in America, that this is what you have to do to feel and be successful at retirement,
Yeah.
right? Where
Yes.
you focus on what you carry, what you are abundant in, and that's how you can share your abundance with others and then receive maybe what you're not abundant in, right? From somebody else.
I love that thought. I think that thinking about what you're abundant in and being able to share that's just like, t- here you go, listeners. Take that part of it.
Here, I'm sure it's my abundance
Yes,
too.
it's your cycle, it's your abundance cycle. I love it.
I mean, everything has a cycle, right? So,
Yes, everything does have a cycle. And I think that just start looking at things differently. Like, can you decide to look at your life differently? Can you decide to actually find evidence of abundance in your life? Like, does that scare you, or could you actually do that? And I'm not saying to you, Tracy, I know you could, but where are you abundant in your life right now? Right? let's just
And if
think about
nothing
that.
comes to mind, just start with the little things that you're grateful for and see what grows from there. Because there are times when we are in
Yes.
scarcity, right? I have a friend who he has a tattoo on the back of each arm. One says feast and one says famine. And he said that's just to remind him that, it goes both ways, right? So whenever there's
Yeah.
famine, there'll be feast again. And when there's feast, don't get too comfortable because there can be famine again, right? And then
Mhm.
so that's on the back of both of his arms, and then in the center of that is him, right? And where he is right now.
Mhm. Yeah. And I get that. I think too, it's always hard when we're talking about these things not to be like, yes, we understand that there actually is lack in the world and that there are inequities in the world. Um, and so maybe you can look at your life where you could be abundant in giving something to groups of people who are not feeling that abundance right now, who maybe are
Well, and I mean, we can go back. You could be abundant in some sort of personal power that could help
yes.
lift up another person or another class or another,
Mm-hmm.
race. There's all sorts of things going on in this world where you could just use your time not to volunteer, but to show up and protest or in support, right?
Yes.
And so you could be abundant in your time and your personal power. And for those times when you do feel, when you are literally in scarce, I've had those moments, but it's been my mindset that has helped get me through it and get me out and not
Yeah.
live in it and not make it a personality trait and not make it a lifestyle, right? Like there's
Right.
so many people all around the globe that, do not live the life that an American would deem successful, yet they're much more happy or happier than some of the wealthiest people in the world, right? Because the wealthy people are Scrooge McDucking their gold coins, and the abundant people are living in the present moment
Right.
and recognizing what they do have.
Well, right. Recognizing what they do have and recognizing that abundance comes in many different forms.
I mean, abundance, it's really easy. It's not about material goods. You could be abundant in love, in hope, in luck. Like I mean, there's just so many different ways to look
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. So I pulled, sorry, from the deck today and I actually asked the question. Typically, I just pull the card and I went, I'm going to do this more deliberately. And I said, what does everyone need to know about abundance? What does the collective need to know about abundance? And I got two cards. The first of which is the Two of Wands. So it's a person. He's like the lord of his domain. There is what looks like the earth he's holding in one of his hands, holding onto one of the wands and yet sort of stepping through it, right? Um, and this card can mean, as any card can, many different things. But what I got from this card for this show is basically getting what you want in life is nothing without a love of your life right now. Like you need to be in love with the life you have right now, or at least find the pockets of your life that you can be in love with right now, because
Yeah.
acquiring things won't change you.
The contemplativeness of that card, it is just
Mm-hmm.
definitely a man, like, kind of not necessarily weighing but just reviewing and looking
Mm-hmm.
at, like you said, his land or what he's worked for.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes by Ben Bergeron, who says happiness does not lie on the other side of achievement. So typically
Yes.
it's the journey and not the destination that makes us happy, that gives us purpose. That
Yeah.
typically once we achieve something and we have it, what we tend to think about is, well, now what? Right?
Right.
There's an emptiness with achievement.
Yeah.
There's pride and there's success and there are things to feel good about, but
Mm-hmm.
you kind of always have to have that what's next goal. And so when you have an abundant mindset, you're just always open to receiving more and more and more.
And to knowing and noticing what you already have
Mhm.
and what's all around you, right? So the second card that popped out it was what it reminded me of was like, yes, remember this, get past this, and then you can have this, the
And then you
three of cups. Then you can party.
can
Um, so this has three women sort of dancing around with their cups held high, and obviously joyous occasions, celebrating. There's flowers around them. The sun is shining. You don't see the sun, but it is daylight.
They
Um,
definitely feel and look like they're having a good time and that they're
yes,
abundant and fun, right?
yes. And so, yep, what can you celebrate now? Where can you see your abundance now? But also maybe whose day could you brighten? If you're full, whose day can you brighten?
You
Yeah.
said it a different way earlier. Do you remember?
No, what did I say?
Whose cup can you fill?
Oh, I'm glad you remember what I say.
And remember to only fill from an overflowing cup, right? So that's that
Yes.
abundant mindset. You already have to
Yes.
be there. Don't be in a scarcity mindset and then give to people and then be like, well, now I don't have anything because nobody gives,
Yeah.
right? Like, so fill other people's cup with the abundance that you are receiving.
Right. You will not end up with an empty cup by filling other people's cups.
Yeah.
I'm not yelling at you. All right. What's happening? What's happening next time?
Oh, well, can you believe it? The wheel of the year keeps turning. And we are already approaching another Sabbath to celebrate. So Lamas or Lunasa falls on August 1st. So next episode, we'll talk about how to use this time of year to celebrate all of the abundance you're harvesting in your life and how to use this last cycle of sunlight to make the most of your end of year.
Oh, I can hardly wait. That feels amazing. Okay, well, if this episode spoke to your soul, please share it with a friend. And if you have time, give us some love on your preferred platform with a rate, review, and subscribe. You can also reach out to us via Instagram and YouTube under The Brightly Podcast or via email at brightlypodcast@gmail.com.
It always reminds me I haven't checked our email in a while. So with that, we hope you have a bright, beautiful, and abundant day.